Hello, hello, hello. Uh, Looks like there is some. Yeah, no, we are live on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Those who joined early, let me know if you joined from where you are and uh, if you are looking forward to this session. If you see me a little out of sorts today, I have been a little under the weather. So, and I'm told it is showing now. So, but don't worry, I'm fit and fine. I've just had a bout of viral fever and on my road to recovery. So, welcome to Manage Better, your show, the show where we bring consultants, authors, coaches, and experts in their own fields who can share their lessons with us and make sure that we can learn with them. Now, today's session actually is a very interesting session because I will be the. This is probably in the 92 episodes that we are talking first about a particular profession like management consulting. Now, management consulting, like many of us know, and I did write about it in my post today, that there are more jokes than any other profession about management consulting. That they will take your own watch and then show you the time, and then still charge you for it. But once you peel the onion and keep the jokes aside, it is a very coveted profession. Everybody wants to get into it. The maybe for the glamour, maybe for the recognition, maybe for the joy of actually solving something for others, and so on. So, just one second. The so the management consulting profession, therefore, is a very coveted profession, and not everybody is able to get into it. The general myth, uh, many of you would know, is that you need to be from if you are in India, from the IIMs, or if you are overseas, from the Ivy League colleges or some of the top colleges of Europe, or something like National University of Singapore in US and all. But that's actually not true. These are myths for some of like every profession has some myths. These are also some myths in many ways. My my hair is going all over the place, but that's part of the problem of having a lot of hair. Unlike people in my age who don't have hair. uh, so the so therefore I wanted to invest a little bit time today to speak to a management consultant and somebody who helps people in becoming a management consultant, and bring those thoughts to you. So that's the topic today. My guest today is Akshay Sirsalewala, and he's a CA, chartered accountant, and has cleared all level of CFA and FRM as well. So, uh, not very common. CA, all levels of CFA, FRM. He's a graduate. He's also an MBA from IIM Code, 2020 pass out, just before the pandemic, that is, and has worked with companies like Deloitte and BCG. So, in a short career, he's seen multiple associated professions, and which includes, of course, CA, CFA, FRM, MBA from IIM Code. And along the way, for the last several years, he's been helping young candidates to break into management consulting through something called Inside IIM. So, and there are other such organizations that he works with to help. One such is Mesa School. Mesa School is a young new age MBA school where people are trained to become, I would say, startup ready in many ways. So it's like a startup MBA, but in a very focused and disciplined manner. And Akshay has been a professor in that. So apart from this, of course, how I know Akshay is that he's a content creator on LinkedIn, and we were together, uh, part of the first batch of LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program. He has over 80,000 followers on LinkedIn and 50 million views. I don't know how he keeps all this count, but there are. He's very popular, widely popular. Every post of his gets uniquely viral, mainly because of his unique wit and ability to bring humor into the situation. He's passionate about mentoring and has been featured in Forbes India magazine for the same. So it is now my pleasure to bring Akshay to the stage. Namaste, Akshayji. How are you?
Namaste, Anshumanji. Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
No, no,
We've
pleasure is
known each
totally
other.
mine.
Ha,
No, no, pleasure
ha.
is
So
totally mine.
we've known. Ha. So I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. We've known each other now. I think since 1.5, 2 years, thanks to the LI Cap.
Yeah.
But finally, we got a chance to collaborate. Uh, two very interesting things which you spoke in the introduction. First is I can relate with your problem of hair. My unfortunately I don't have hair as good as you, but I can relate to the problem. And secondly, I'll take up your point on consultants showing time from your own watch. That is
Uh,
that is personal.
that is it. Oh, so the background to this, Akshay, is that, and you may not know, and many people in the LeakApp group don't know that in the
Hmm.
beginning of my career, for 8 years, I was a consultant. So,
Okay,
so,
okay.
so,
Right.
of course, I was a quality management consultant, so not a out and
Hmm.
out management consultant, but I was a
Hmm.
quality management consultant and had multiple clients where clients ask was mainly to improve their quality performance. So that was my domain from 98 April, May to around, I think, June, March of 2006
Hmm.
or so. And
Right.
then within Infosys also for about 3 4 years, I was an internal consultant in many ways.
Okay.
So, so yeah, so I, if it is personal to you, it is personal to me much more than you. And
Right.
I
Right.
was a consultant for 8 years, which is a little more than your experience.
Much more. Much more. Much more.
Okay, so somebody has decided to spam the comment section. Amit Ved Jain, please don't spam my feed, man. If you don't delete it now, I am going to delete it in and ban you from any such show. This is highly inappropriate. Take your baggage and sell somewhere else.
We are now fed up of seeing hiring posts on LinkedIn. We've seen so
Yeah, I mean,
many.
people have. I mean, I can say something harsh and then it will spoil the taste for the session. So I will avoid that. Let people
Right.
be who they are. They are
Hmm.
displaying their level through doing things like this. Anyway, Akshay, today's session is about management consulting, right? So, and
Hmm.
you, I, the reason why I wanted to speak to you, of course, because of your recent experience with Mesa School
Hmm.
and Inside IM, where you have helped
Right.
several candidates, and
Hmm.
you have a, you know, slightly unusual background as well, from the CA, from IM. It's it takes a lot to do these things, but more than this, what we are interested in, how do you bring all of this to consulting and so on. So first question, of course, that I would like to quickly understand is that why is consulting such a coveted profession,
Hmm.
and how did you glide into it? I mean, when you were probably doing your CA, you may not have maybe thought of it, or
Hmm.
did you think of it? How did you come to it? And first, of course, why is it such a coveted profession? In because you have seen so many candidates.
Correct. Uh, so I'll probably shed some light on the first thing also which you mentioned, which is unusual background. Uh, I remember when I was doing my MBA, I think we were in a batch of 420 students. There were five CAs. So yes, that time it was very unusual. But now things have changed drastically. Now I think on an average a top IM would have 25, 30 CAs if I'm not wrong. So things have changed, and I think in the future the number will only increase. But talking about why consulting is such a coveted profession, I think it ticks all boxes. So the first thing what you expect from any job is you need it to pay you very well, right? So consultants make a good amount of money. Sometimes in most cases it is better than other professions, correct? Then in terms of perks, you have all the perks. It can be glamorous for an outsider, uh, in terms of you are, let's say, traveling. You I mean, your meals are paid for when you are at the client place, etc., etc. So it can be glamorous. So you are making more money, you are getting more perks, and most importantly, which I think, which I think is the biggest USP of consulting, is you're doing good work. In terms of, let's say, if I join a top conglomerate, it might take me a lot of time before I'm able to connect with the top management, um, or make impactful decisions. But in consulting, you get a chance to do all of that slightly early on, right? So I think, I mean, you are making more money, you are doing good work. Overall, it seems like an attractive package. Obviously, it has its cons as well, but overall, it seems very attractive. And how was I able to glide into it? I think a lot of it was thanks to my alumni, my alma mater, which is I am Codicode. Uh, I got good opportunities post that. So, and thanks to my, and going back to your point about unusual career choices, thanks to my background as a CA, etc., it was purely demand supply. You are one CA out of a batch of 400, ab आंख में आ जाते हो because you are different. So I got good shortlist and was fortunate to join my first company, which is Deloitte.
Fantastic. I think I can relate to this a little bit because while I was working as a early in my career, I was working as a quality consultant.
Hmm.
Uh, Quite often, I worked for a smaller consulting firm, which is a boutique quality management consulting firm. So we maybe did not have the trappings of, like you mentioned, um, the the glamour part,
Hmm.
but we could get audience with. I have been before. I was like just out of my MBA, maybe in 98, 99. I
Hmm.
remember being in the room with the top, I can't name the person, but top CEO of the country who's asking
Hmm.
my opinion on the quality of his organization. And I, of course, I've always had some confidence in how I deal with these things. But I remember after the first few things, I realized, okay, he is asking me because I'm being paid for this job and I have an informed opinion. So he's not asking Anshuman Tiwari. He's asking
Hmm.
somebody who has been paid for this job. And I shared, and I'll tell you, the company was Reliance, and the person is no more. So one of the senior most
Hmm.
professionals,
Hmm.
and the room was silent because what I said was not anybody, nothing anybody had said earlier.
Okay.
But it gave me so much intense power that after a week or so, I got a call from his office saying that you had given these 3 points. Sir has asked us to give you an update on these 3 points. The
Hmm.
assignment was done and over. For
Hmm.
next 6 months or so, they gave me regular updates on what I had told. So I completely relate to this, that it 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 brings you immense responsibility,
Hmm.
and beyond the power and the glamour that most people see. Of course, that is
Correct.
more visible, but anybody trying to get into consulting should consider that it comes with a lot of responsibility. I remember that occasion, sitting in the room. Almost everybody in the room was double my age or more. This
Correct.
CEO was maybe triple my age at that time,
Hmm. Hmm.
and more experience than I could count that time. That kind of thing.
Right.
But that experience taught me that it is not me. It is what I can do. It is the opinion that I have, and so on. Okay. So the obvious question of Akshay will be that while the consulting profession, of course, is coveted, and the usual route is that you do an MBA from a good institute and you get selected,
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Hmm.
and so on. But since you also through your IM, inside IM and Mesa School now, have
Hmm.
helped several candidates, what skills do you think young people should have? Firstly, we'll tackle the young professional and then go into
Right.
other mid career. But
Hmm.
young professionals, what should they have to break into consulting? Obviously, only having good scores is not going to be enough. That is not
Correct.
true for anything actually in life.
Correct.
Good scores is only maybe a door opener at best,
Hmm.
or at least gives you the opportunity to knock on the door. Nothing more
Hmm.
than
Hmm.
then. But But just to distill the in experience that you have seen for
Hmm.
young professionals, what are the skill sets? Forget the qualification and where they come from and extra. What are
Right.
these four, three, four, five key skills that if you were hiring today, a
Hmm.
consultant for Deloitte, BCG, and other companies that you work for,
Hmm.
how would you hire?
Right. So I'll shed very little light on the hiring first in terms of CV, right? So a typical CV will have three or four sections, right? So you have your work experience, you have your academics, you have your extracurricular and POR, right, which is position of responsibility. Consulting firms normally look for spikes. You can have, I mean, if you have two spikes, you are sort of, there's a good chance you'll be shortlisted. What is a spike? A spike is something which you have in your CV which no one else has, something which is unique, right? What can be a spike? Some things which you already mentioned. If let's say you are from the older IIMs, older IITs, if you're a CA ranker, right? If you have some, you have an Aditya Birla scholarship, Reliance scholarship, etc., great. Those are spikes because something which you have, which others don't have. Then, in terms of work experience, if you've worked with good brands in the past, if you've done quality work, right? If you've, let's say, won some awards while working, etc., those once again are spikes. In terms of extracurriculars, maybe you are a good writer, you are a LinkedIn top voice, could be a spike. You are a national level badminton player, etc., anything which is very unique is a spike. So you need to have at least two spikes out of these three sections. If you have two, you are, there's a very good chance that you will be shortlisted. But shortlisting is the, I mean, is a difficult part, but once it is done, you have to then display your skills in the interview, which you, and you rightly mentioned, a good score will only get you this far. But in the interview, nobody really cares if you graduated from IIM Ahmedabad or if you graduated from a normal B school or you're a
I'll
BCom.
maybe maybe slight interruption. Sorry, Akshay. Just for the audience, the the reason this spike is important, at least the way I see, is that it shows a certain commitment to excellence also from you. So if you are excellent in some area, chances are that you have the capability of becoming excellent in one or two more areas as well. So and it is not because your skills in badminton or your skills in online writing
Correct.
are being appreciated. What is being appreciated is that you found a space and you became the best in that space, or among the best, and that is an attitude and a temperament and a capability and a habit and discipline that you can bring to work. I thought I'll clarify that because I've hired a few, and I always look at this transferability of an attitude, which is
Hmm.
important. This is not a transferable skill, it is a transferable attitude in a way. Sorry, I interrupted you, but I thought I can clarify here.
No, no, very well said and absolutely on point. I completely agree with you. Okay, now that you've shortlisted, you are in the interview. What next, right? So over here, there are few skills which consultants look for. One is the most important, obviously, is you have to be a problem solver. You need to have good problem solving skills. And hence, if you see in most consulting interviews, the style of interviewing is a case interview. You're given a real life problem, and on the spot, you have to think of a structure and you have to solve it, try to solve it basically, and come to a conclusion. So problem solving skills most important, and I mean that changes the way, I mean that changes your verdict of if you are hired or if you're not hired. The second most important skill which companies look for is communication skills. So as a consultant, I know we've discussed this, Anshuman, that you speak to, firstly you are speaking to your juniors, you are speaking to your seniors, right? You are speaking to partners as well, you're speaking to management, you're speaking to, sorry, the client. And in terms of client also, you're speaking to three or four levels of clients. You're also speaking to someone who's recently joined, who's at the lower level, but you're also speaking to the CEO in like in your case. So you need to have superior communication skills, you need to build a relationship with people, and you need to know how you are communicating with people at different levels. Very, very underrated skill. Plus, finally, you need to know how to write, present, because that's what you'll finally be doing in front of the client. So these are very important. Communication is very, very important. um, so basically problem solving skills, communication skills. Then you can probably say that some hard skills are also required. Hard skills meaning, uh, Excel and PPT. So many consulting firms, specifically the Big Four, what they do is they also take a PPT and an Excel test before they
Mm.
finally give you the offer letter. So that is one more thing. I think probably if you have these three, you are sorted.
No, really well said. I think while you were talking, Akshay, what occurred to me is that quite often, and don't hire so many consulting roles now. My role profile has changed over the years. I'm
Hmm.
more a internal enabling function, but
Right.
I still look for watchman to chairman skills. So
Hmm.
what do I mean by watchman to chairman? If you can't strike and keep a conversation going with a watchman, and I'm
Hmm.
don't demean anyone. I'm just, as a matter of fact, just to explain that somebody who's guarding the room or office or building or some the security guard, and at the same time you can have a same similar conversation and still keep the conversation going with the chairman. If
Hmm.
you have
Right.
that kind of skill, that will be extremely handy in your career, particularly as a consultant,
Hmm.
because, and I said this about a couple of weeks back in another such event, that for consultants and similar professions, the camera is always on. I was given this lesson very early in my career, when I was a junior consultant. My MD would travel with me, and he said that, and I was, while we got into the um, dining area, I relaxed a little bit. He called me aside and said that the camera is always on.
Hmm.
So I still remember that. Of course, I he was smart enough to say it in a way that it didn't hurt me and nobody else
Right. Right.
understood. I was
Right.
smart enough to understand what he meant and quickly corrected my situation. But for consultants, the camera is always on. You are always
I, I, I'll
performing.
I'll interrupt you here and tell you a great story. I remember
Sure.
we had gone, one of the top consulting firms had come on campus, and how it works is they took us out for lunch. That's how it works. You can network with
Hmm.
people. They want to see
Hmm.
how you are speaking, etc., how you are as a person, right? And the food came. So we went to an Asian restaurant, one of the top Asian, like a good Asian restaurant में हम गए थे, and वहाँ पे
Hmm.
I saw the entire team over there is having using chopsticks etc. और हम लोग हाथ से मतलब and I was like so that is how it is. I mean you're right, the camera is always on. You have to, there is a certain level of professionalism which you have to display.
The another similar anecdote is, a close friend of mine from MBA got selected with BCG, Boston
Hmm.
Consulting, where you have also worked. This
Right,
was
right.
98, so way before your time.
Hmm.
And after the initial rounds, the 4 or 5 candidates were all called for a dinner. There was some BCG event where they were
Hmm.
invited to attend.
Right. Hmm.
This guy later on told me that the place where he realized that he has made it was when he tasted the soup before adding salt. So this is such a pivotal moment in his entire, and he's a very very well known entrepreneur today after having
Okay.
moved on from
Hmm.
BCG and started his own
Hmm.
company.
Hmm.
But everything boils down to adding salt to soup after you have tasted it. The three other people did not do
Right.
this. He
Hmm.
did this.
Hmm.
And he said, I could immediately see there was a reaction from
Hmm.
the table. I was
Right.
treated differently. I knew I have
Hmm.
made it. Because
Interesting.
all
Right.
four were equal on this thing.
Correct.
So now, of course, this guy was fairly very smart guy.
Okay.
Very
Right.
he figured it out quickly. Now,
Hmm.
whether he did it on purpose or knowingly, or it was his style or whatever, I
Hmm.
don't know.
Hmm.
But the other three were rejected. They did not make it,
Hmm.
and everybody was, you know, on paper, very smart.
Hmm.
So those who are interested in, and since the question was more about youngsters and youngsters getting into this field, please don't assume, like Akshay said, and we gave you 2 3 examples, that please don't assume that your marks or your college or your transcripts and other performance will alone get you. They will get you to the table. After that, your ability to engage in a conversation, your ability to be insightful in about a particular topic, your adding salt after tasting the soup, and other such skill sets will also be handy. Okay, so moving on. Sorry.
I hope
um,
you are you
no, no, I'm
okay.
enjoying the conversation. Actually, I'm far better today than yesterday.
Right. Hmm.
And I noticed that, although speaking is aggravating it, but if I enjoy the conversation, I'm better off. Um,
Right. Right.
so just taking the question a little further into mid-career. So any chance for mid-career professional? And this show, Manage Better, is more about mid-career people actually.
Hmm.
But any chance that mid-career professionals can move into consulting? If yes, how do you think they can move into consulting? I mean, when I say mid-career,
Hmm.
people after having 5 7 years of work experience, or maybe a little bit more, and or maybe 10 15 years as well, and now they want to move into mid-career
Right.
consulting roles. Obviously, one differentiation, Akshay, before you answer, I will share with you, is that by this time these people would have some domain experience. When you are new,
Correct.
you may not have a particular domain, right?
Hmm.
That is why for youngsters, when you were dealing with the question, you did not bring hard skills about a particular domain, because that domain may not exist early in your career. It takes a
Correct.
little time to build that domain.
Hmm.
um, but for mid career, how would you think?
Great question, Anshuman. And I'll I'll probably add on to the points which you already mentioned over here. Right.
Sure.
Firstly, normally when you join any consulting firm post MBA or as a fresher, so to say, uh, for the first 4 to 5 years, you are working across sectors. So you could be working for an aviation company, you're working for a food delivery company, hospital, etc., across the spectrum. But after 4 5 years, you are then aligned with one sector. You become a manager there, and then you grow in your career, etc. But you have to finally, after 5 6 years, select one sector and grow, right? In mid-career professionals, when they are hired, obviously they are, if you have 7 8 years of experience, you are looking at hiring them for one particular sector in most cases, right? So I've seen this across my tenure at BCG and Deloitte. There was multiple people who used to come in with a lot of domain experience. So there was someone who worked with, if I remember correctly, one of the top retail companies for 9 10 years, and then she moved into consulting, and she was the retail expert in our team, because we all had learned about retail as consultants, but she had actually had made her hands dirty. And you can't put a price tag to that experience, correct? So is it is it easy? I won't say it is easy, but is it possible? It is very much possible. What you need to do is, uh, you need to demonstrate that while you are working at XYZ company for 7 8 years, you were able to do meaningful work, you were able to take decisions, there was some bit of strategy and execution involved. If you can demonstrate that, you can very much get a shortlist. Anyways, consulting firms are on the lookout for domain experts, because as a consultant, you still have an outside in view, but when you are employed and you work with a firm, you actually get your hands dirty, you know how the work is done, and there's a lot more you can learn. So there is always there is all consulting firms are always on the lookout for such people. I mean, you just have to ensure that your CV is shortlisted, because there are there is a lot of competition that time also. In fact, my own in my last case at BCG, my own partner had worked with PNG for 6 years before moving to
Hmm.
BCG.
Now that's a very fair call. I think I'm glad you brought out the expertise part, because one of the areas most consulting firms will lack is hands-on expertise. So they will always be looking for people who can bring that hands-on expertise. I remember early in my career, and this might be a surprise to you, Akshay, I
Hmm.
became known as an expert in cement industry.
Wow.
Nobody
Hmm.
today will know me, and
Hmm.
and spun yarn, so which is textile. These were
Right.
two specialties. So most of my clients were in cement or spunyan,
Hmm.
acrylic or spunyan kind of industries. But the reason I was able to, because once I started getting clients in those areas, I built some knowledge base in that, and I was then sought after. So for about 8 10 years, this was my core industry. These two were my core industries. Of course, later on I shifted to service industries and all.
Hmm.
But the reason I'm sharing this with everybody is that this is an example of how, if you have a skill or if you have deep knowledge in a particular industry domain or expertise, then you can bring it to a consulting firm because they are always looking for such skill set. So the
Hmm.
question was around mid-career people, and like Akshay said, mid-career people are more than welcome in consulting firms. Of course, entry point and mechanisms may be slightly different because you may not be selected off campus. There is no campus if you are already in mid-career, so your entry point and all will be different. But in terms of yes, possible, absolutely welcome
And
also. And I, yeah, sure, go ahead.
ha, sorry, sorry, please go on, please go on. Sorry, sorry, sorry.
I was adding that while I was a consultant with some of my clients, they had also hired. So many of them had hired people from McKinsey or BCG for other assignments. So we would often meet and have lunch, dinner
Hmm. Hmm.
together,
Hmm.
right? So I could see that they would lean on me for my experience and background
Right.
in what I could bring. And I still remember some of them taught me a basic Excel kind of thing.
Hmm.
I
Hmm. Hmm.
My
Hmm.
Excel skills are very very basic even now,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
the advantage was that I could bring that experience, and they did not
Correct.
have anybody in their team who had that experience
Hmm.
in that industry, right? So they
Right.
would always bounce off their ideas
Hmm.
and all with me because I could tell them from my experience that this could work, and of course I had good use of them because they could bring a lot of intellect in what they were doing. So, okay, Akshay,
I'll,
one,
I'll just
sure,
add. I'll add two minor points here for every
sure.
mid-career professional who's thinking. One is,
Hmm,
uh, first, there could be some chance that uh, you. So let's say if I joined a consulting firm, in 6 years, if I become a manager, it might be possible that with 8 years of experience, they take you as manager, meaning
hmm,
you probably lose out on 2 years per se in that sense.
hmm.
But that is because even though you have domain experience, you might not have consulting experience, right?
Correct.
And so that is one thing which is minor, but still I think people should
That is
keep that in mind.
that is true in every profession. Some when
Correct,
you shift, you might gain some, you might lose some.
correct,
So,
correct.
hmm,
Right. And secondly, sometimes even if they'll give you some time to adjust, but it's still that there will always be high expectations. Just because you are new doesn't mean
yeah,
uh, they'll still expect you to have great control over the team, etc., etc. That is just one thing uh, which I saw some people. Sometimes you can struggle because you are in a different environment. But
hmm.
yeah, I mean, these are the two things which I also wanted to highlight. Yes.
The example that I remember, somebody, this person who used to work for McKinsey earlier now has started his own. He said that it is like you may be coming from some high altitude club football team,
Right.
but your expertise is playing in high altitude or something else, but you have landed in Manchester United versus Manchester City.
Hmm.
So apart from the first 5 10 seconds, there is
Hmm.
no scope. The match is on. So,
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter now whether you come from a less competitive place or XYZ, but the match is on. If you don't play, we lose, or you get hit
Right.
and you are anyway out. So,
Right.
we have some questions. I'll bring in one question. Devraj is a very senior professional with Tata Group. And his question is, what would be a good scorecard for a consultant to know how he or she is progressing in his or her career? Fantastic question, Devraj. Uh, any Anything you can add to this, Akshay? He's talking about scorecard, about keeping a tab on your own progress.
Right, right. So what I would probably look at it in terms of two things. Um, First is in terms of, as a consultant, I would look at what is the kind of work I have been able to do, right? Let's say, I mean, if I want to be a consultant for a long time, have I done different kinds of projects, right? Let's say, I mean, have I done projects where I have to increase sales, have to reduce cost, improving employee efficiency, etc., different kinds of work basically. So if you've done different kinds of work, it becomes easier in the future, because if, let's say, after 8 years if you are doing a new project, you are still expected to be very good at it, right? So have I done different kinds of work? And that is why what happens is, in companies like BCG, you are asked to change your case or sector per se after 9 months, because they want you to get exposure of all different industries, etc., before you finally choose where you want to settle. So first, am I doing different kinds of work? That is one thing which I'll definitely want to ask myself to judge if I'm growing as a consultant. Secondly, meaning, after 7 8 years, I just want to see, uh, I mean, what is my designation? Am I now managing more people than I was managing earlier? I mean, have I had good relationships with my senior, higher ups? I mean, these are the two things which I'll probably look at. And when you want to add something over here,
Maybe one thing only. I think very good points already, Akshay. One thing, and this is again from slight experience, that as you grow in a consulting profession after some years, you are expected to bring clients or more work.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, and the more work from existing clients and new clients, of course, onboarding new clients is is a huge plus for any consulting firm, because typically clients for consulting firms or consulting firms for clients are sticky situations. So once you get in, you not only stick, you expand.
Hmm.
So that is the expectation, that's how they make money, right? So otherwise, usually the entry is quite subsidized or low priced, so you make money only from the next assignment and or the next year or so on. So Devraj, I think one thing apart from what Akshay said, I would add is that ability to bring
Hmm.
more work from existing clients and, if possible, new clients. Uh, when
And
I
and
was a consultant for a few years, major part of my compensation was linked to new clients and
right.
volume of work. So
Hmm.
not that I, if I sell one training program, I get something. It was of course linked to percentage and so many things.
Hmm.
But the stickier the client or the opportunity that we have, the better I earn in that sense.
Right.
So I would add that.
And just to add one more thing, the interesting part is that in a consulting career, your in every 5 years, your expectation will change completely. In terms of, in the
Correct.
first 5 years, you are expected to be an exceptional individual contributor. No one is asking you to lead teams. You are expected to be the best in terms of client interaction, having a good control over Excel, PPT, etc., problem solving. In the next 5 years, it is expected that you will be a good contributor because you have done that already. But what is now expected is that you know how to extract the best out of your team. How can you ensure that your team is performing very well? So in the first 5 years, you have to be good performer. In the next 5 years, you have to ensure that your team is performing. And then after that, after the first 10 years, as Anshuman mentioned, you are then expected to bring in clients. So the level of
Hmm.
the expectations change every 5 years. So it becomes very difficult to manage
But
them at every.
life changes every 3 to 5 years in
Correct.
many ways. So,
Right.
but uh, just moving on, interesting question from Joshit Joshit Reddy. For a fresher, do you recommend we stick to one sector or diversify the sectors, and how do certification like Six Sigma aid in getting into consulting, assuming the person has good communication? So this is the second part of the question is my area, Akshay, the Six Sigma part. So Joshit, you know, no certification gets you as ready as your actual work and capability. Certifications and all are generally capability building interventions. You build capability and then you have to do something about it. So if you ever expect the certification itself to land you a role or a better job and all, please stop smoking whatever you are smoking. Get real. This does not happen in any field, not only Six Sigma or any field. Where it will help, of course, like I said, it is a capability building intervention. So you are investing in your capability. It will come useful, but don't expect you put 100 rupees and 200 rupees you will get out of it. That does not happen in any field. Now Akshay can take the first part of the question.
Completely agree with you, Anshuman. No certificate will guarantee you. Uh, it doesn't matter which certificate it is. It won't guarantee you any success. Now, for your first question, do you recommend we stick to one sector or do we diversify the sectors? So it depends purely on you, in terms of, a, if you are very clear that I am very passionate about financial services, I want to make my career in financial services only. If you have that clarity, and if you have a passion for a sector, please do that. Choose that. In 3 or 4 years you will be getting exposure to a lot of sectors, and after that you basically become an expert, correct? But let's say if you are someone like me, I was not clear which sector I wanted to work in. So for someone like me, it is better I experiment. I did couple of cases for financial services, I did couple of cases for consumer goods, did couple of cases for pharma, and finally after this, after 4 or 5 years, you can then take a call which is the best for you, and finally stick to that. So totally depends on you. If you are not sure of what you want to do, please explore sectors so that you get a taste of everything and finally you decide. But if you are very clear कि यार मुझे financial services में ही अच्छा करना है, stick to that.
Fair enough. One more question coming from Alvin. What trends do you see in edtech sector and how are they impacting consulting services? Anything you have seen? I'm not too close to this topic, Akshay, but anything you have seen?
I think I mean, in my limited experience, I think the edtech sector is bleeding quite a bit. I talk for most edtechs because of, because I mean, I don't want to name any players, but because of some major players struggling quite a bit. uh, Even the other smaller players are facing difficulty in raising funds, etc. I don't remember. I think a CEO of an edtech recently posted this on LinkedIn that earlier a PEs used to tell them that why should we invest in you? We should invest in that big player. And now they
Hmm.
are saying, that big player is bleeding. Why should we invest in you? Very interesting. So there is some, there is. I mean, edtech sector is bleeding slightly. Plus, uh, I remember in 2020, 2021, 2022, that was a golden period where, because of the big push for online education, numbers were very high. Uh, Many enrollment numbers were touching the sky, etc., etc. You are getting more funding, but now I think things have returned back to normalcy. So I think in the short term there will be some problem at least, but it depends on, after 6 months we'll probably be able to see how these tech firms are able to innovate and come out on top. But yes, in the short term, I think there are still certain problems which they'll have to face.
Sure. So, Alvin, your question, of course, uh, just to add a little bit to your question in terms of long-term prospects, all these areas, which traditional areas which are disrupted by tech, and we call it martech or ed tech or other tech, they will eventually, become an industry. For example, today e-commerce is a fairly established industry, and many companies are actually making money as well, right? Not the big players, but many are smaller ones, specialized ones are making some money. 10 years ago, everybody was bleeding money. So something similar churn will happen in this. There were similar disruptions or similar difficulties in e-commerce 10 years ago, 7 years ago. There was flush of funds and then everybody was withdrawing funds and xyz. So any new industry, particularly accelerated industry adoption, there will be such difficulty. So We don't want to comment on any specific one. I mean, at least I am not capable of. But in terms of trend, like you asked, trend, this will get adopted eventually. More and more industries will get tech enabled. I myself last year did one, 9-month online diploma in design thinking and innovation, which maybe 5 years ago, if somebody had given me money, I would not have done. But things have changed. I started realizing that, oh, this option is available. Where else will I be able to attend a course from an MIT professor and Professor Govind Rajan of Tuck University? Even if the session is a recorded session, I can't get to those people. Um, and if for $3,000-4,000, if I'm getting that access for a few months, fantastic. So some of those things will certainly uh,
it is
work out.
it is also very easy for the instructor. I mean, if sitting, I mean, if I have to give a lecture, otherwise I might have to travel for 45 minutes one way, then 15 minutes to cool down. You give a lecture, you are meeting people, then you come back. It's a long time, which long process. But when you are sitting at home and let's say you're giving a lecture, you save a lot of time. I mean, so that
Hmm.
also is very beneficial for the instructor.
We are coming towards the end, Akshay, but one question I found very interesting. Rishabh Saxena. Rishabh has been on the show earlier and has asked quite interesting questions. And today, another one. What are the key skills needed for experienced professionals? And this question came when we were discussing the mid-career part.
Hmm.
To enter management consulting roles without IM or IIT tag behind you. So he's asking on my behalf. I don't have IIT IM, so if I have to get into um, this management consulting profession,
Right.
uh, what skill set should will be looked at?
Right. So, firstly, I think the IIT IM tag is quite overrated in terms of after 3 to 4 years, nobody really cares a lot about which IIT or which IM you went to. I don't think when people interview me, they'll stress a lot on which IM or IIT I went to. They'll stress more on the work experience or work I've done. Because if you are paying me good amount of money, you want to see if I can work, not see whether I can pass some exam. So if you are
Hmm.
not from IIT IM, you want to enter, you have some experience. Very important is what kind of experience have you had, right? In firstly, I want to look at what kind of work you've done. Have you done some work where you've used some principles of strategy, you've executed something, right? Secondly, I want to see what kind of impact you've created in that wherever you are working. It could be a big four, or it could be any company. Have you been one of the better performers, right? Have you been more consistent than others? Can you display some good growth, some good promotions over the year? If you can, you have a very, very good chance. And I think we've discussed this in detail. It doesn't matter. I mean, if your education is, you still have two other areas to show spikes. If education is
Yeah.
not that area, you can still show it in work experience uh, or
In,
extra credits. Just one small thing I'll also add, Anjuman, over
sure.
here. I remember I was interviewing once for a company just before, during my, I mean, interviews for BCG. I was interviewing for one company, and I mean, the interviewer told me, "Oh, you write on LinkedIn," uh, and I was like, "Yes, I mean, I do. Sometimes I do." But like, oh, I won't. So I'm, and at the end, he told me that I'll be, I mean, giving a good feedback for this interview just because I want to work with an influencer. And obviously, he meant it
Oh.
jokingly, but
Hmm.
he just meant it jokingly, I'm sure, right? But
Hmm.
the thing is that there are multiple ways in which you can show your excellence. It doesn't need to be from an IIT or IIM.
Fair point. I think for Rishabh's question, like Akshay, you said, in any case, if somebody is in mid-career and they want to move into management consulting, nobody is expecting them to be from IIT or IIM, right? So that expectation itself is not there, Rishabh. So it cannot be a handicap, or the absence of it cannot be an issue, because you are not expected to be one. That stage has already been uh, passed. Okay, Akshay, quite a few more questions, but I know that we had booked about an hour only. But what I'll do is that, some of the questions are all on LinkedIn only, so you can, when you get some time, you can actually check the questions and give some reply. And I can remind everybody who's still live, more than 150 odd people are still live. Please follow Akshay. He shares a lot of consulting tips and all, and of course his work with the Mesa School and inside IM and all. You will get tips from the profession directly. And those who are joining from Akshay's fan club, if you follow me, you get tips on mid career and related topics. So we can help each other in that sense. Any
And
uh,
Anshuman calls interesting people every week or every once every 2 weeks, right? And so I think even I think for next week you have Manish Jain coming in, right? So you're
Manish
already
Kumar?
booked for
Yeah,
next. Manish Kumar, sorry, you are already booked. So yes, if you also want to listen to cool podcasts, follow Anshuman.
thanks a lot, Akshay. Now closing into 100, and next couple few weeks, actually 3-4 weeks are all booked. So looking forward to that. But I don't let anybody go without any book recommendations. What are you reading today or these days, and what can you suggest to our audience? And no is also an answer.
So I'm not a big reader, I would say, right? My content, the my form of content consumption is more on YouTube. I like to go and listen to podcasts, etc. But if I were to talk about one of the books which I recently read, which I enjoyed, and I also know that person personally, and hence that is more close to me. It is Sandeep Das's passion for, I mean, storytelling,
Hmm.
business, how business storytelling works. That is one book which I enjoyed. I've spoken to him post that also about what I liked, what I didn't like, etc. So I think that is something which I would recommend. And if you are someone who likes to create content and you are looking, you said there are many questions about LinkedIn, I would suggest that you do read that book. It will teach you how to speak in front of a
Hmm.
class and also in also write online. That is one thing which I would recommend. One more book which
Oh,
I've read is, I mean, yeah, that's I think probably that is something which I really enjoyed. So you should.
that reminds me, I should invite Sandeep on the show, because this is the second time somebody is recommending his book. So obviously I'm missing something if I'm not invited him on
You
my
definitely you should invite.
then.
He's a very good speaker. I've attended multiple office sessions also. So
Hmm.
so
No, I've heard very good feedback, and about the book as well, and quite a few people have recommended. So yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so with that, I'll let you go, Akshay. Thank you very much for your time today. My apologies once again for my being a little under the weather, um, but I don't think performance dipped at all. So I did manage very fairly well. I will now have to take some rest for my vocal cords. But thank you once again. I think Madhvi is asking for. Can you put the book reference here? Uh, Akshay, so if whenever you can, if you can go to the comment section
absolutely.
and put the book
Hmm,
reference, that will be.
hmm.
We'll do that, Madhvi. If Akshay fails to, then DM him directly. Okay.
I'll do it, sir, definitely.
Uh, so I try and end every show with a with the next one, which Akshay has kindly already done. So next week we will be talking about all things starting up or entrepreneurship in a online way, right? So if you have wanted to start some online journey, if you wanted to sell something online, if you wanted to create an online community and don't know how to do it, Manish Kumar is your man. He's quite popular these days on these kind of topics. Common friend for us, Akshay and me, and he's promised to bring all that he knows from the world of starting up online and literally from 0 to 100 kind of a space. So don't miss that. If you've been thinking of building your own e-booklet or starting your newsletter, starting a community, a WhatsApp group, a community channel, and making some money out of it as well, he's the man. So next week, same time, 11 a.m. which is 10th of February. We'll meet. With that, I'll let you go, Akshay, and thank you very much. And everybody, thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Thank you, Anshuman.